Marc Wesselink is a serial entrepreneur and venture builder with more than 3 decades of experience in launching and scaling technology companies and founding over 12 companies. As co-founder of Venture Rock, he's working to remove friction from startup investing in Europe and beyond by connecting founders, backers, and venture builders through a digital venture platform. His mission is to advance technology, science, and innovation to help build the next generation of global tech companies.
Capricorn Connect. People, potential, technology.
Marc Wesselink, thank you so much for participating in the podcast. You are in the Netherlands, we are here in Switzerland. Really excited to have this conversation with you. You had such a exciting career as an entrepreneur, investor, had successful exits. If you look back into your career, Marc, what would you consider was your most successful venture?
Success has many phases. Thank you, by the way, for having me. Success has many phases and, of course, failures as well. So I was not only successful, but I also had many failures. And my 30-second pitch is also always, I started 12 companies, failed 4 times, sold 3. 3 companies were sold, but also had 1 IPO and 2 bankruptcies. That's a downside of entrepreneurship. But my biggest learning was, I think, in 2006, where I've created my first process of building a company from an idea to a scale. And the learning was that the guys who started was as a direct-to-consumer business in food, and they ended up in a business to consumer in energy. So it was a total different ball game when they started and what had become later. And to me, that was a huge learning that this company is still existing and growing. That if you start with the business, don't stare on the start, but adopt and adapt what your customers are asking from you. And that to me was the biggest learning, hence also the most successful, not most successful, but most successful learning for me.
Mm-hmm. So constantly be flexible, listen to the feedback from customers, and often the idea you had at the beginning has nothing to do with the product you're working on at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started 12 companies and failed 4 times, and those 4 failures were all about building something first, then trying to sell it, and then come to the conclusion that the market was not ready, or the customer need was not there, or the problem was not big enough to be solved. And then I started learning to do things differently, and that for me was an epiphany at that moment. Yeah.
Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. Doing things differently. A couple of examples, maybe.
So I started my first company just by starting and building something, and then shake as many trees as possible to get the first customer, which takes 2 to 3 to maybe 4 years, and to make it break even. And back then I was a college student, so I did not need a lot of money on a monthly base, but yeah. That's not really a sustainable way of building a business. And I've learned along the way, and also by making a lot of mistakes, that the best way to start is by listening first and building later.
And by listening first, listening to the customers or anybody else?
Listening to the customers, listening to the users, listening to the distribution, right? Because nice that you have a customer, but sometimes the user is different than a customer. The user is not always paying for you, especially in business to business. but also distribution. Yeah, how to get to that customer in a scalable and repeatable way. And you can determine that already in the early start. And based on those findings, you can sort of pivot your way into a product market fit.
Marc, I also want to talk about financing. When would you recommend external financing? When do you recommend organic growth, bootstrapping, for example?
Yeah, if you look at the way we built, for instance, the company that I've used as an example that started in the beat direct-to-consumer food and turned out to be a platform for green energy, it's quite difficult to explain to early investors that stepped into your story about direct-to-consumer baby food that you change your business into a green energy platform. So, and I've learned also the hard way that many companies are going down the drain because of getting capital too early in their still experimental phase.
So getting too much capital too early is a disadvantage?
Too much capital too early, yeah. If you look at the top 5 reasons why companies fail, especially in Europe, is what we call premature scale. So the founders think they have a product market fit. They get money and put a lot of money in acquisition of customers, but also have an increase of churn of those customers. Then it's a little bit the same as filling a bucket with a big hole in it.
So misallocation of capital at the beginning, early stage. Huh?
Yeah.
Marc, when you look back at your experience and you did your exit and sold your companies, can you tell us a little bit about that experience? What was the process in selling, or let's say your first exit, for example?
In the first exit was sold to my co-founders, so that was quite a speedy process. But despite the fact, of course, that the never-ending discussion about evaluation of a company, and the selling company always, the one who's selling it always want to get more than the one who's paying for it. And another company was sold to a big customer. So that was also really an insight. And another company was eventually listed on the stock exchange. And that was a more lengthy process. But ever since then, I've also been part of an investor or a board of many companies that were being sold. And it's always a really difficult and lengthy process because of due diligence, no insights in companies, lack of proof what happened, proof what is happening, and proof what will happen in the future. And that's why I also started VentureRock by creating a more transparent process of progress. What is progress?
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely talk later a little bit about VentureRock, what you're doing at the moment. I would be also interested, you as an investor, what do you look out for before you invest? Or maybe are there any red flags for you?
Yeah, there are one of the critical points of starting a business is what we call the founder problem fit. That the founder really needs to have a connection with the problem he or she is solving, and also the market that is going to be addressed. Without that founder problem fit, there you see a big churn of founders / companies that are failing. Let me elaborate a bit. If a founder really felt the problem on a daily basis, like a stone in the shoe, he or she is willing to eat the grass of their neighbors to solve that problem. And one thing you always know when you start a business, there will be roller coaster, there will be multiple bushfires, there will be mayhem, there will be ups and downs. the founder that really feels the problem that he wants to solve and really has a connection with it, he or she will keep going.
So, for example, a dentist invents a new technology to make his profession more efficient. Is he more credible than, for example, an investment banker who has an idea of solving some kind of solution in the medtech field, for example?
So sort of credible is I think the wrong word, but the dentist will go on in ups in ups and downs, and the investor, a banker who is less connected with the problem, if things get rough, he or she will more likely to stop.
Okay, makes sense. Marc, is there any other reasons why startups fail? You mentioned the problem founder connection. How did you call it?
Yeah, the founder problem fit.
The
founder connecting with the problem. Yeah. That's one. But we did quite a large survey amongst more than 100 post-mortem startups, and we asked the founders only one question, and that is what went wrong. And they were only allowed to give 3 answers. And to my big surprise, more than 50% of the founders admitted that they built something the market was not willing to buy. More than 50%. And then the second reason was team. Indeed, the founder problem fit, but also the fact that people who are really good in starting a business are not necessarily the same people that are good in scaling the business. Yeah, you see that a lot happening in Europe, that scaling a business is a total different ballgame, and they are not able to scale a company, and they stay founder-centric, and that's for a scaling company really difficult. And the third reason why most of the companies fail were access to capital. In a continually way. 80% of the time was wasted on fundraising. And the person who's doing the business development was the same person who was doing the fundraising. So 80% of his valuable time was spent on non-business related. And that's, of course, also a big delay for a business that needs to go fast.
So misallocation of time as well. So that's also where you, Venture Rock, facilitates also founders and investors not to waste any time in making the perfect match there. We'll talk about later a little bit about that. I want you to quickly catch on what you said, the challenges of scaling, also scaling globally. Now, you know Switzerland very well, you know Europe very well. Where do you see the challenges if you have the product, you build a company, have a well-functioning startup, they have customers, next phase now, you want to scale globally. What do you see there, the challenges?
They don't do proper market research on which market needs to be addressed second, after their first addressable market. And second, the distribution to those markets. They don't do proper research. They think based on a few inbound requests on their website or mail, they think like, let's go to the other country. And then they put a lot of efforts in it. And suddenly it's way more complicated than they thought, way more expensive to acquire a customer. And especially if you compare also the customer acquisition costs towards the lifetime value of that customer, and the economics doesn't add up anymore. They spend a lot of time on acquiring those, but the business economics doesn't work. And then you got a stall-up instead of a scale-up, right? That's happening a lot. And they also underestimate the jurisdictions, the different legal jurisdictions in Europe or in Asia, but also in the US. They also underestimate the different jurisdictions in the US because don't forget, The US has also different jurisdictions. Everybody thinks there is one US, United States of America, but it isn't.
And they love to sue as well, right? They take a lot of legal action in the US.
Yeah, that's of course the common law principle where everything need to be written in a contract, and therefore a common law contract is five times more extensive, but also the more more expensive to create. And you see also a lot of European-based companies stalling because of that. Right?
Yeah. Because of the whole regulation, legal, but also a lack of research. If you want to branch out into a new country or new market, do your research properly if it's worth it, penetrating that market.
Exactly. And most of them also underestimate the costs, and they think that they can manage the country from the region, but you need to go where your market is. And so if you go to the US, you also need to be in the US.
You need to be present in that market.
By the founders, because in the first 5 years, you are running a founder-led company. So the founder also need to be in the next market. And you see a lot of scale-ups failing by hiring an external consultant who is doing the US or is doing Asia. But the founder themselves, they need to understand that market.
So the founder needs to be present there and needs to know the market. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah. And they can move 6 or 12 months, but he or she needs to also have the founder-led also the founder-led sales, but the founder-led adaptation, because you need to change a lot in the settings when you are overseas.
Marc, I also wanted to talk about Europe as a technology hub. How do you see Europe in the tech space, growth space? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, if you look at also at the data, but also not only the data but also the money, we are really good in research. We're really good in getting research to a first market, but then we are less good in getting it to global scale. And I'm a big advocate on creating a more organized operating model that helps research from university, also known as technology transfer offices, to a founder-led company to international scale, and also organize the right capital around it, and be also much more diligent on successful projects or stop, because there are many zombie companies running around from grant 1 to grant 2 to grant 3, especially also from European Union and local grants from local regional development organizations. And it will never be a viable business, so please stop putting money in it.
So many zombie companies are financed by government grants in Europe, and they're basically just like fake companies that don't have real customers or just don't work in an efficient way.
They made the mistake of the biggest mistake of the founders that building a solution in search for a problem.
Yeah, you should go reverse, right? It should be the other way around.
That's the best way. Yeah, exactly. But many technology-led companies, they build a fantastic solution, and they can solve all the problems in the world, but they forgot to talk with their customers.
Yeah, that's kind of not so good. I would like to talk about Venture Rock, your latest really exciting project, where you bring investors and match them with founders. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
So, since I'm active in the startup space since 2010, so more than 15 years, I've discovered that there are 3 main issues in not only in startup financing and innovation in general, but also in the European context. That's not from bottom to top. The bottom is a sort of a mutual understanding. What is progress? What is the progress of a company? And no bullshit hockey sticks or whatever, but what is real progress from seed, pre-seed, from idea till scale? And there a lot of literature is being written about it, and I've sort of copied and put them in the right order. So I've created 72 proof points where you can see how far a company is in their development, but also what proof that they have delivered on getting there. The second layer is the support. A CFO is not needed in the first 2-3 years of your company, but you need to have your administration in order. A chief legal officer is not needed in the first stage of your company, but if you sign and build the wrong contracts, then you can have a huge issue in a later stage. So how can you create a scalable support system? But most importantly, objective support system. And I've seen many companies fail due to listening to the wrong advice. And therefore, we've tried to build, or we have built an operating system that helps the founders going through those 72 proof points in an objective way. And of course, what is more objective than an AI agent? Very objective. And the AI agents are helping the founders through those 72 steps. And of course, for legal, you have different than for finance, then you have different for marketing type of agents. And that's how we built the second layer.
So it's not just about finding an investor, it's about supporting the startup or the scale up in all the different departments such as legal, finance, marketing, whatever they need in order to grow and be healthy.
Because if you look at the core challenge of the European ecosystem, it's a 90% failure rate of startups. Yeah. And predominantly caused by 3 reasons. They build something nobody wants. They takes too much time to find money. And thirdly, the team is out of balance when they grow. Those are the 3 dominant reasons why companies fail. And if you try to organize that, you need to start bottom down, and the bottom is really the proof so the evidence that you have gone through a series of steps. Then the support system, and then the access to capital. And the access to capital in Europe is very, very dispersed. You have local, regional funds, you have national funds, and you have, of course, European funds. You have local angels, you have regional angels. Angels are not cross-border active at all in Europe. So there are many different players in the funding ecosystem. Hence, when you are building a company, you lose 80% of your time on raising funds. And that's what we're trying to organize.
And then the jurisdiction as well plays a role. I mean, we're in Switzerland now, which is completely different to European regulation, but maybe funding from EU would be good for certain companies, and maybe funding from Switzerland would be better for other companies.
And we also have the EU, the European Investment Bank, who is anchor in almost all the venture funds in Europe. And they also demand a certain regional focus, which you can, of course, imagine that the Spanish fund is not investing in a Dutch startup. But that doesn't help, right?
No.
Because if your start is in the Netherlands, and your market turns out to be in Spain, and the Spanish investor wants to invest in you, you need to move your company to Spain.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that
And then
is
suddenly
another
your Dutch
restriction
investors
again.
said like,
Yeah.
and then your Dutch investors said like, what are you moving to Spain? Where's my money? I've put seed money in it. What are you doing? And most of the companies will go bust because of this issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Marc, I also wanted to ask you a question. If you look back into your exciting career, with all these ups and downs, roller coaster rides, what would you say, is there anything you would have done differently? I know you wouldn't be where you are right now, with all the ups and downs, but maybe there's something you would have done differently. What would that be?
I think more international from day one. I've learned that in my second phase of entrepreneurship. My first company was really a very localized company, and doing business internationally is the chance of success is way higher if you also look at different markets out of your own country. That's number one. Number two, I would have found a more experienced advisor that doesn't that did not do it from a theory but from the practical. And that's number two. And number three, I would always do it with someone else, and
not by
on your
yourself,
own.
with somebody else. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that's some good advice as well. Also, a question I love to ask the podcast guest is, if you would buy an autobiography, which one would you buy and why? Like from a famous person.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of being a fan, but it also connects with I've already said before, and that was also what Steve Jobs always did, is have the customer and the customer experience always in your everything what you do. And that in essence made Apple Apple. And he was a master in that. He's shown that in the start, but of course later he was fired and rehired, and he did it again. And your customer is always in the center of everything what you do. And that was his motto, and that's also what I believe it still is.
So always listen to the customer, always take the feedback from customer and implement it into the product.
Listening is a little bit the wrong word, because there's a big famous quote from Henry Ford. If I would have listened to my customers, they would have asked for faster horses, because many people don't know about the innovation of a car, right? And they're like, I want to go, but look at what they are doing. And then test and iterate, and that was of course mastered by Steve Jobs, but also by Apple. And if you look at from a corporate perspective, right? If you now look at how fast innovation is going, big corporates can't handle that speed, and they try to do innovation within. And Jobs already did, the biggest innovation was their iPhone. It was a special department outside. It was a very small team who had short development cycles to have a continuously iteration. And that's something that big corporates can learn still from them.
Also listen to, because the bigger you grow as a company, do you think it's harder to listen also to the customer, or do big corporations also do a good job in that department?
No, I've been unfortunately also a part of a few corporate accelerator programs, and you see that they use market data from third parties like AC Nielsen, and have never ever talked to the customer themselves. other than showing the first version of their product. But if you show something, you're not listening. And so the art of asking the right questions is really important. And by showing something, that's not the way.
So get the feedback from the customer, honest feedback, and listen to the customer, what the customers needs, what the customers are doing.
Yeah. But again, business are sort of problem focused, right? And not a solution. Everybody is like, look, this is what I've built. Oh yeah, nice. But that's not how you start a conversation. The conversation is like, how do you listen now to audio? How do you listen to podcasts? And what is irritating you? What is annoying to you? What can be improved? What can be, and how much is it worth for you to solve that problem? It's a different conversation than showing apples.
So solving the problem, getting into the problem, and finding then the solution once you analyze a problem.
And of course, based on the first version, show it to the people that you've been talking to, and then start iterating based on the feedback loop.
Marc, if you were to pick a superpower next to your superpowers you already have, which one would you pick?
Flying. I think sitting in an airplane is very, very annoying. And so if I could have get a few feathers, wings, that would be really helpful for me. So flying.
Flying.
That's because in different perspectives, right? Because flying gives you also a good overview, helicopter view on where you stand from a distance. And flying, I think, is also, if you would be able to fly, one of the greatest thing you can do. If I'm always mesmerized by birds, like they land on water and they fly and they can do whatever they want to do. Free
Marc,
as a bird.
Do you have a mission statement, a credo, something like a motto you live by?
It's sort of the number one is that I always use from a founder perspective, but also from a health-wise perspective. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. That's number one. Number two, show me the evidence, and we will invest. And evidence is key to anything. And gut feeling can help, but data, evidence first. And thirdly, accountability, because there are many people saying that they do a lot, but they don't deliver anything. So accountability is third.
Marc Wesselink, thank you so much for this podcast interview. It was a pleasure. I wish you success and nothing less with Venture Rock, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.